Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me warmly welcome you on behalf of AIFC Green Finance Center, host of the GIP for BRI in Central Asia. As you may know, green finance was defined as one of the pillars of financial center, along with the overall capital market development, Islamic finance, and fintech. We've been working closely with the Beijing Financial Center almost since the establishment of our center to ensure the best practices of green financing are applied for policies in Kazakhstan. And we're happy to be part of the Green Investment Principles Initiative. Kazakhstan is a key strategic partner for the BRI, and being Baikal of the Belt is implementing various BRI-linked projects in finance, industry, transport, and logistics with China. In fact, Kazakhstan is seen as playing one of the central roles in the development of the land connectivity, as 2 out of 6 BRI corridors pass through Kazakhstan. But what is Green Investment Principles for BRI about? The Belt and Road Initiatives aims to substantially enhance the level of infrastructure and economic development across BRI countries, which includes Central Asian states. Financing BRI requires the participation of both public and private investors. Embedding the principles of sustainable development across all asset classes, financial products, project phases, and participating institutions is critical for the shared interest of project developers, sponsors, investors, and host communities. In order to ensure the environmental friendliness, climate resilience, and social inclusiveness are built into new investment projects in the Belt and Road, green investment principles for BRI were developed. Many UN initiatives such as PRI, Sustainable Banking Network, World Economic Forum, and others took part in development of the GIP. It includes 7 principles at 3 levels: strategy, operations, and innovation. Specific measures that signatories could take to contain environmental and social risks include environmental risk analysis, information sharing, and conflict resolution mechanisms. Principles encourage signatories to utilize cutting-edge green financial instruments and green supply chain practices, and to improve organizational capacity through knowledge sharing and collective actions. The GIP is a set of general principles to guide financial institutions and corporations. They do not categorize projects based on their size and impacts, or nor does it differentiate countries according to maturity of their laws and regulations. There are over 50 institutions around the world who signed up for GIP, including stock exchanges, financial institutions, and supporting organizations. The list includes BNP Paribas, Luxembourg Stock Exchange, Standard Chartered Bank, Big Four firms, and many more. In practice, the GIP Secretariat will work with partners and signatories to develop guidance and tools to support the implementation. Training will be also provided to the participating entities to facilitate and to support the adoption of the GIP. In fact, there are 4 working groups already established under the Secretariat, which work on environmental disclosure, climate risk assessment tools, green finance products innovation, and tools for green project holders. The working groups consist of signatories and supporting entities, which makes the tools really applicable for both financial institutions and project holders. Today, representatives of working groups will share their progress in respective topics and present you the tools which might be useful for your work. Please let me share the housekeeping rules, and I think we can start. First, we'll have a welcome speech from Lin, who is head of the Secretariat of GIP in Beijing. Then we'll follow with a keynote from Yaseen Anwar, who is the chair of the regional chapter of GIP in Central Asia. Then we'll have representations of 4 working groups, and then Q&A session. And to our audience, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat box during the session, and we'll respond to them in the end. And now I turn to Lin for your welcome speech. Lin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Aigul. And also thank you very much for the organizer to invite us and providing this opportunity for the GIP to present our progress to made today, and also our plan for future years. And also we want to engage with the potential stakeholders, including financial sector regulators and financial institutions based in the region. And as mentioned by Aigul as well, we want to engage even those green project owners who want to be engaged through the broader group of financial institutions who want to make investments in the green sector. So I'll be focusing my speech on 2 aspects. One thing is on the broader background information of the GIP, especially comparing to the time when it was created firstly in the end of 2018. And today, I think a lot of things have changed, including COVID-19 and also the climate goal commitments by many different countries, including China and Kazakhstan, by carbon neutrality, to realize carbon neutrality by 2060. And the other thing I want to provide update is really the most recent meeting, the third annual meeting of the GIP, which was held just last month. And we launched the second annual report at the meeting. So as I said, as a first part, I think we have a quite different background comparing to 2018 when the GIP was formally launched in London in collaboration between the China Green Finance Committee and also City of London Corporation Green Finance Initiative. By then, we were quite small, but actually the momentum was already there. The key issue was to enhance the understanding and awareness of green financing and also its potential role to scale up this sustainable project investments, especially on the Belt and Road. And we also were targeting other regions and maybe countries along the Belt and Road who were not formally signed up to the GIP. So it probably could be understood as a set of initial or voluntary principles that are aiming to increase their sustainability goals and targets. And today, I think we have seen a lot of change, including COVID-19, which are creating a lot of issues and challenges for international travel and also a lot of travel restrictions, and we find it difficult to meet in person. Even today, I think if we do not have the COVID-19, we are able to meet in person. But I think the good thing is more and more people are realizing sustainability and sustainable development is one of the vital things, which used to be good to have. Now it's something must have. And also back against this background, we see more and more countries are coming back with quite ambitious climate goals, including China. So at the same time last year, the Chinese President Xi Jinping announced that at the UN General Assembly, saying China will try to realize its carbon peaking by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. Actually, at the time, I think most of the Chinese people don't really even know what carbon neutrality means. And today, I think everyone are talking about carbon neutrality. This is almost the same case in many countries along the Belt and Road. And I think we have a lot to do, including through our international initiatives like the GIP, the stakeholders. And within the GIP, we have like 40 formal members and 12 supporters, which will be growing again. And the total assets under management of those institutions exceed $49 trillion. These institutes are actually composing or the majority of the financial sources to support their growth and also their climate goals. I think we have a lot to do against this background. That's the first point. The second part is the most recent update we have provided at our last annual meeting held in September last month. This annual report is designed to report the all progress as a whole and also individual progresses by some of the members. And the main point was to track ourselves. Although we are a set of voluntary principles and initiatives, I think still it is important for us to have kind of mid to long-term goal and target. So specifically last year, we came up with a midterm target called Vision 2023. By 2023, we have set 7 quantifiable data, including the number and ratio of disclosure reports by our GIP members, the ratio of green investments, disclosure in brown assets, and also their announcement in terms of green investments as a long-term goal. And I'm very happy to share with you that actually out of the 7 targets, we have realized 5, including the ratio of GIP members who have set specific targets and goals to include ESG considerations in their governance structure, and also the ratio of green investments to their overall balance sheet and portfolio. And the only remaining 2 issues actually are very quite specific. One thing is on disclosure by following international recognized frameworks like the TCFD. Our target was 50% of them reporting against the goal. Actually, by the time we were reporting, the number was 42%. We are 8% lagging behind. The good thing is that actually, although we are lagging behind, another 10% of them are still coming back before end of this year. That means we still have a chance to catch up very quickly. The other point we did not make or realize the goal was the kind of disclosure against their brown assets or high carbon assets. Our goal was 45%. And actually, we only realized that 36 or 37%. The main challenge was, I think, 2 issues. One thing is technical. So there was kind of a lack of universally accepted let's say, definition for brown or high carbon assets, because this terminology differs from country to country, and also based on the different context of different countries. Different members of the GIP might have a different understanding, so their statistics are not quite available. The second thing is still unwillingness. So some of them are still very happy to disclose anything good they are having, for example, the amount of green loans on their balance sheet, or ratio of them, or growth of the green ones. But for the higher, I say, carbon assets and the polluting ones, they are quite hesitate. I think this is the broad, let's say, phenomenon we have observed across the GIP members, and also many non-GIP members. But this is not a reason that we cannot do anything. We'll continue to do a lot of things through the working groups, and which I'm very happy to invite today to share their progress and the plan for the next few years, including Working Group 1, where Wu Qian has been serving as the secretary, and also our colleagues from Bank of China to chair the third working group on innovation of green finance products to support the green projects in the Belt and Road. And last, most importantly, this is a newly one, is called a Green Project Database, which we are working together with the Refinitiv colleagues. So Darrenth is coming from Refinitiv. So that's all I want to say, and thank you very much once again, and I will look forward to a very fruitful discussion later today. Thank you very much. And back to you, Aigul.
Thank you, Changqian. I think Yaseen and Anwar joined us, right? Yaseen, are you there? I think we lost him again. So maybe for now we'll turn to Wei Qian then. So Wei Qian will talk about Climate and Environment Risk Assessment Toolbox. This toolbox was developed to support the financial institutions' endeavors to measure the risks, and maybe it could be used beyond that. Wei Qian is a partner of PwC in China and based in Beijing. With a 15 years work experience, she is a leader of the Climate and Sustainability Service team with extensive experience in helping clients from Fortune 500 in clean tech investment, corporate sustainability strategy, and supply chain resilience. Wei Qian was the lead author of Green Finance Policy Recommendations for Business 20 Summit in Hangzhou in 2016. And she has advised Chinese banks and government departments in developing their green finance strategies. Wei Qian, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Aigul. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to attend this GIP session. My name is Wu Qian from PwC. We are also the Secretariat for Working Group 1 of Green Investment Principle. Green Investment Principle Working Group 1 is chaired by ICBC and Swiss Re and supported by us. We've been focusing on the work on environmental and climate-related risk assessment. Our main objective is to help identify and promote, where necessary, the tool of risk assessment for financial institutions to identify and measure this type of risk at project level, portfolio level, and strategic level. We are also aiming to enhance the capacity of financial institutions on risk management, especially related to Belt and Road region. In my presentation today, I will introduce the urgency of managing climate and environmental risk and how we can do it. So first, this shows the 2020 risk survey done by World Economic Forum. Climate-related risks are rated the highest for 3 consecutive years. Indeed, the uncertainties and the complexity of the issues have been a huge challenge in front of human beings. On the right-hand side, you can see the data proves this as well. If you compare what happened in the past decade and the decade before, not only the scale of the damage, but also the frequency nearly doubled. So putting the world in a dangerous place. I'm speaking from Beijing in a rainy day. Typically, the city is very dry in the northern part of China. Well, this year we have experienced unprecedented precipitation, about 4 times higher than historical average. So the abnormal and extreme weather happens elsewhere too in China and over the world. So we consider climate risk as a critical topic in the GIP working group because regions along the Belt and Road region, countries along the Belt and Road regions are vulnerable because most countries are developing countries and they have a large population and they plan to have a rapid economic growth. The social economic development is slow, but the environmental carrying capacity is weak. Here shows the top 10 countries most affected by the climate risk, including, you can see Puerto Rico, Myanmar, Haiti, Philippines, you name them. So, this is a particular important issues faced by Belt and Road countries and regions. So in this backdrop, and a lot of the countries and companies, and they have put their commitment in place, setting their climate target or signing the reporting framework. So here shows the number of the participants. For example, almost 50 countries have announced their net zero targets. And there are more still, consider to have the target. There are over 1,000 companies have signed up the science-based targets, and there are nearly 2,000 have become supporter for the TCFD, the so-called the Task Force of Climate-Related Financial Disclosure Initiative. So this would transform our economic pattern. Also, the risk embedded in the financial sectors need to be carefully measured and managed. To enhance the capacity of risk assessment, working group have developed an online toolkit. We have put a name, we call it a CERAT, Climate and Environment Risk Assessment Tool, CERAT. It's a key outcome for Working Group 1. It integrates internationally commonly used carbon accounting methodology and benchmarks in key sectors. It also considered the environmental standards and the rules in over 100 countries along Belt and Road. CERAT evaluates the performance of targeted projects against benchmark by selected criteria. We have built 3 key functions in the key sectors, so-called carbon intensity, environmental impact, and water risk. The last one, water risk, is ongoing, but the first two has been launched, up and running. I'll introduce later. And also we have put the standards and benchmarks of the key sectors, which include energy, construction, transports, and industry. And it also covers many subsectors. So this would help to a large extent, the financial companies to prioritize their environment by considering more on the environmental benefit and cost, and identify those with significant risk for further investigation. And we hope this can also build an open space for our signatories and then others, interested parties, to learn how to calculate, for example, carbon emissions and measure the environmental impact. And to also understand how efficient the technology or the project we will invest in against those indicators. And this will create a basis for further analysis on those type of risk. And next, I will use maybe 3 minutes to just log online and show you how to use it. Here, you can see this is the website. You can log in. Okay, let me see if it works. So if you log into this website, and then it can give you a few options. You can register as individual or as enterprises. Or if you haven't decided to use it, you can download a video to understand what's in it, and also maybe like a training session for yourself. So you have these options. Once you log in, you can see this is the web page. First, you need to input the project information. You can choose the project type and which industry it relies in, and also the type of product they produce and the technology type. We will also need more information, for example, on the location, which countries, and the longitude and latitude to help us understand whether this is, in a severe, dangerous in a conservation area or facing potential water risk. So once you have the proper information in place, we will analyze the environment and climate risk for your project. So I have already logged in some information beforehand, and so this is just we put in some dummy numbers. And once you have more information in it, you will have a portfolio of your project assessment output. Let's look at the details together. So in the evaluation report, you have three functions. The first is climate impact, second is environmental impact, and the water risk is still ongoing. In the climate impact section, and you can see whether this apply in compliance to EU standard or some commonly used in industry standards, or whether it suits China standard or multi-development bank. And you can also evaluate the total carbon emissions and by scope. And you can also have the intensity number and compare it with the benchmark. And you will get a result of whether it's lower than the benchmark or higher than the benchmark. If it's lower, like carbon intensity, means it's the performance is relatively good. So this project is a construction project for a shopping mall in Kazakhstan. So this gives you some of the basic information on how the exercise will look like over here, construction shopping mall. And in other sections, you can also find more details on the accounting standard of different sectors, the benchmark value, and also some of the green standards in selected regions. If you feel this would be interest of you, and you can try to log in and play around with this website. If you have information, you can reach us through AIFC after the session. Again, this is scan code and the website. Hopefully we can see you later online or get your feedbacks after the session. That's all from my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Qian. This is very impressive. And quick two questions. I'm sure we'll have those questions from the audience. So is this toolkit free for users? And do we have plans to translate it to, let's say Russian or other languages to make it easier to use?
Yeah, if there's enough interest, we can consider to have more options of language so they can be widely circulated. I'm sure Chen-Ling can give us support in making that happen.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think now we'll turn to Carmen Tsang from Credit Agricole. She will share the progress to date and plans of the working group on environmental and climate information disclosure. Carmen is a professional in sustainable finance with experience in both sell side and buy side, with a focus on ESG and sustainability. We have her pre-recorded speech, so I turn to our technical team. If we can have the video, please.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Carmen Tsang, representing Credit Agricole Corporate and Investment Bank as the co-chair of GIP's Working Group 2 in Environmental and Climate Information Disclosure. Our other co-chair is the Industrial Bank of China, which is one of the largest green bond issuers globally and from China. First of all, I would like to thank the GIP's Secretariat and the AIFC's Green Finance Center for today's session. The purpose of the GIP Working Group 2 is to focus on capacity building on information disclosure related to ESG aspect, in particular, climate and environmental information, considering the Belt and Road's imperative role for the world to meet with the 1.5 degree climate goal. Information gathering and disclosure is the very first step allowing a corporate or a financial institution to recognize not just how they are impacting the environment with their daily operations, but also how trends like climate change will impact the company itself. It is indeed an increasingly important tool for one's risk management. Consistent reporting and disclosure allow corporate to benchmark their sustainability performance against industry peers. It is also increasingly important for global investors, especially the socially responsible investor base, to evaluate companies in their investment portfolio more holistically. With global regulatory initiatives such as European Union's Environmental Disclosure Framework and the tightening of ESG and climate disclosure in stock exchanges in China, Singapore, and Hong Kong, China, etc., it is evidence that corporate should pay more attention and be preemptive to provide high-quality ESG and climate disclosure to the public. Our working group has conducted a survey to assess the current disclosure level amount of signatories, and by identifying capacity gaps, we provide relevant support and capacity building workshop and materials for our signatories and beyond. For example, this year we held workshop focusing on sharing best market practice and environmental disclosure, and we also aim to launch a handbook showcasing examples of existing disclosure according to the structure of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, also known as TCFD. Looking forward to next year, we will go deeper to provide guidance for signatories on the viable approaches to disclosure green and brown asset by leveraging on the existing work done by international regulators and actors. For example, the PBOC, TCFD, ICMA, and various stock exchanges. With carbon being the center of disclosure, we also aim to provide information to help our signatories to define and calculate their Scope 1 to 3 emissions. We look forward to continuing the discussion and conducting the important work with you within the GIP. And hopefully, with the relief of the pandemics, we'll all be able to meet soon. Thank you very much and have a nice rest of the day. Thank you.
Well, we thank Carmen. And now I want to turn to Shangqian. He's a manager of investment banking in Bank of China, and he will provide us deep dive into the work on green financial product innovation. Shangqian is a CFA charter holder and has 10 years financial sector working experience, including debt capital market and interest rate derivatives trading. Shangqian, over to you.
Thanks, Aigul. Hello, everyone. This is Shangqian from Bank of China. So we are co-chairing the working group on green financial products innovation with Standard Chartered Bank. This group aims to build the capacity of GIP signatories and support us in the focus area of green financial products innovation, looking to financing gap and the potential pathways for bridging the gap by providing green financial products and mobilize more private capital into green projects along the Belt and Road region. With the support from AIFC as signatories and other supporting agencies, we have done lots of work and got fruitful achievements last year. It's a great pleasure to have this chance to share with everyone what we have done and to see in which way we can step forward further. In the past few years, have emerged any single ingredients innovate. Under the big green concept, including the blue bond, sustainability-linked bond, transition bond, and etc. Bank of China has been dedicated to promoting green innovation. In September last year, we are the first FI issuers had offered 2 tranches blue bonds supporting sustainable ocean eco-development. While in this January, we have finished during euro currency transition bond issuance, which I think should be the first transaction line to ICMA's climate transition handbook. Following the working plan of Working Group 3, we have been exploring the possibility of GIP blended finance facility in the Belt and Road countries. promoting the green funding projects innovation. A good example is the carbon neutrality bond, which my colleague Chen has mentioned before. I think it's an evolution of a green bond aiming to facilitate the carbon emission peak and carbon neutrality strategy. And the process shall be used on the project cutting the carbon consumption. After the Chinese regulators had this idea, we brought it into practice and immediately helped several issues issued the inaugural transactions in this February, and it soon got popularity in China. By the end of September, we have had over 113 transactions, and the total issuance volume has come to around 200 billion yuan, which is 13 billion US dollars. GIP has been attaching great importance into green education as well. For the Green Financial Products Innovation Working Group, we have finished in last year 3 webinars on blended finance, green products innovation, and transition finance respectively. Working Group 3 are checking the possibility of hosting 2 to 3 webinars in the coming year. Besides, we have compiled some case studies on green transition and sustainability, which will be updated continuously, and you may find the casebook on the GIP website. For the coming year, we're going to try to make some researches as well on sector-oriented financing sectors such as power mining and metal, building, transportation, and etc. Together with colleagues in GIP, we will continue to bring together GIP signatories and supporters to share knowledge and the best practice in comprehensive green finance for the Belt and Road region. Thanks.
Thank you, Li Shangqian. And Yaseen, are you there? I think you need to turn on your mic.
Yes,
okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, finally, great.
Okay.
So we have Yaseen Anwar on board. He is the chair of the regional chapter of GIP in Central Asia. And if I introduce him, he has vast, huge experience in international banking and regulatory environment over, I think, more than 40 years, right, Yaseen? And in 2014, he retired as the governor of the Central Bank of Pakistan, where he spent 7 years. Prior to that, he worked in New York, London, Paris, and Egypt with the JP Morgan Chase, with Bank of America, Merrill Lynch in various senior capacities. And now, over to you, Yaseen.
Well, thank you very much, Aigul. I first of all must apologize. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you still see me as well?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, very good. I apologize for this technological hiccup. It seems to be happening every time I come on. Maybe it's my Wi-Fi, but nevertheless, I apologize to you and the entire participant group for this delay. I will try and make up for it by giving a few points that perhaps may be beneficial to everyone and to and this important World Investment Forum that you're hosting. It's important not only currently, but also for the future ahead. So let me quickly go through some of the points I had to make. As follows. In 2008, the center stage was taken by the global financial crisis, GFC, that we all know, that led to contagion globally, resulting in a long drawn-out recession in many parts of the world. Emerging market economies were set back with exogenous shocks and vulnerabilities that took years to overcome. While the GFC is behind us, a potentially larger crisis is looming upon us today, with far-reaching adverse implications to the whole planet. Climate risk is on the top of the agenda today for all post-Paris Climate Accord, as it was highlighted potential financial risks. There are tectonic shifts underway in investment and finance. A broad trend towards socially conscious investment has also gained momentum in recent years. A flurry of events unfold today in support of climate control, and deservedly so. The Belt Road Initiative, BRI, and the importance of climate risk embedded in green investment principles, GIP, complement each other in supporting infrastructure that in itself for economic development. The strategic geographical location of Kazakhstan is the gateway between Europe, the Far East, and the Middle East via Pakistan's imports or ports. To ensure Central Asia extracts value and achieves and upheavals that are a daily phenomena that impact us all. The COVID-19 pandemic adds to global uncertainty with major supply disruptions. Such uncertainties do not bode well for financial markets. And economic development, however, one long-term constant retains its consistency in this uncertainty in support of global economic growth and development for all participating countries, and that is the Belt Road Initiative, BRI. Why? Because it provides access to capital to developing countries on a scale never before available in history for their long-term economic development. As a former central banker, I would like to highlight two key themes. One, the importance of BRI in Central Asia and Pakistan going forward for economic integration and development. And I underscore integration and development. And two, climate risk with sustainability for the new Central Asia GIP chapter, its role and roadmap going forward to make this region a robust and a vibrant one. Regional integration being region, ASEAN countries have established RCEP. RCEP countries together GDP and nearly half the world's population. Within RCEP, 10 countries comprise the ASEAN region. To bring economic trade in perspective, trade within the ASEAN countries comprises approximately 25% of their total trade. On the other hand, the European Economic Community, ECC, and NAFTA, North America Free Trade Agreement, comprises 63%. Corrective steps obviously need to be taken by ASEAN to achieve optimal intra-regional benefits. In contrast, Central Asia republics and Pakistan is the least integrated region in the world and is exposed to exogenous shocks experienced globally from the 2008 GFC. Global and regional integration requires uniformity, equality, and common attributes in financial markets, which we do not have currently. I should point out that Pakistan is the largest single recipient country under BRI with 62 billion and has already developed some of the largest infrastructure projects, particularly in power. The country can be an important pivot between China, Central Asia, and Middle East and Africa. The Central Asian BRI economic corridors could merge and connect with the northern route of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, Cpec, and enter China. The landlocked countries would have access to the favored port of Gwadar, opening a wider corridor to the Middle East and Africa, and vice versa. The current Cpec projects in Pakistan emphasize the projects that will benefit these economic corridors and connectivity, information network, infrastructure, energy, industrial parks, and agricultural development projects. Trade currently within the Central Asian republics and Pakistan is limited, and the following areas have the potential to increase exponentially. Hydrocarbons, crude oil and natural gas, and metals are the leading items exported by the Central Asian states. Setting up of oil pipelines will allow for more efficient movement of these products. Pakistan's SEZs, once fully functional for the industrial sector, will enhance the country's productive capacity and provide a major impetus for economic and social development through new supply chains. The agricultural sector should be mechanized with technological advancement that would increase both productivity and quality of the output produced. Logistical hurdles, once removed, will make regional trade within Central Asia and the Middle East, Africa more economically feasible. Finally, cultural integration will open new tourism opportunities and expand this segment towards socioeconomic growth. In order for regional integration to succeed, government policies in conjunction with GIP can play an important role with well-coordinated leadership to implement principles in support of BRI with over 100 countries that emphasize ESG standards. This in itself is GIP's strength, as opposed to embarking on an individual and fragmented ad hoc approach. A testament of its strength is evidenced by successful projects and key decisions by institutions and countries as GIP makes its mark and voice heard globally. However, we are at the tip of the iceberg as we move forward to incorporate the projects already in the global pipeline under BRI. Investment consultants estimate the ESG market globally to comprise more than $40 trillion that is. As such, we need to educate, elevate knowledge, monitor, and influence the urbanization of developing nations, as well as the demographic trends to ensure ESG standards are met with sustainability. This leads me into my second theme of climate change that has become a risk that is too important to ignore. To quote the Monetary Authority of Singapore, 1, finance is key to unlocking a sustainable future. And 2, it can support the transition to a less carbon-intensive economy by channeling capital to green technologies and infrastructure. The president of Kazakhstan reaffirmed in his recent address at the Climate Ambition Summit that Kazakhstan has taken a course for a deep decarbonization of the economy and the development of a circular economy, committing to become a carbon neutral country by 2060. Uzbekistan intends to move to carbon neutral electricity production by 2050. In 2018, Kyrgyzstan adopted a concept on green economy aimed at significantly reducing risks to the environment, preserving the country's natural ecosystems, and increasing natural capital. So the countries in Central Asia have committed to transition to lower carbon economies and are gradually working out measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, develop renewable energy sources, and raise energy efficiency. As a matter of fact, the following will highlight the significant progress and momentum thus far. A declaration of Central Asian countries on achieving carbon neutrality was signed last week by NGOs from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan in Turkestan, that's in Kazakhstan, at the Central Asian Forum. Secondly, 6 new sustainable green and social bonds were recently issued in Kazakhstan by the Eurasian Development Bank and DAMO. And third, last month, the first green loan provided by the Eurasian Development Bank, EDB, was approved in Kazakhstan with the full support of the AIFC Green Finance Center. These are highlights of the developments and the momentum that is currently. AIFC in Kazakhstan, within its jurisdiction, is working on the development of a green capital market taxonomy, green bond issues, rules to support of green bond issuers, proposals to, can you still hear me? Because I'm getting a sign here that my internet is low.
No, we hear you.
You hear you, okay, very good. And subsidy schemes for green projects, etc. In order for effective implementation, it is imperative to align the entire financial system with sustainable development involving the national financial regulators and all market participants. In fact, GIP can be instrumental in supporting the financial sector transition to a greener path. Furthermore, the central bank and regulator need to be lead in strengthening the financial sector against environmental risk. We need to enhance environmental risk management in our financial institutions and also elevate sustainability-related disclosures. In fact, the State Bank of Pakistan has already embarked on this program by forming working groups, steering committee, and a roadmap for training programs over the next year. Climate change is a risk that is too important to ignore, with sustainable investing becoming a high priority as well. These two are hand in hand. Give you an example. The world needs to sharply reduce greenhouse gas emissions if we are to limit global warming to well below 2 and preferably 1.5 degrees Celsius, above pre-industrial levels as committed under the Paris Agreement. Reducing carbon emissions by half from 2010 levels by 2030 and achieving net zero around 2050. The National Academy of Sciences has forecasted that 1/3 of the global population will need to relocate by 2070 due to climate change, i.e. relocation due to unlivable conditions. It is not only about renewables and electric cars. Greening will have to take place across all industries: steel, cement, mining, building, construction, maritime, agriculture, etc. It's interesting to note during the COVID-19 pandemic, carbon emissions were down by approximately 17%. BlackRock, the largest asset manager, announced last year it has made sustainable investing a cornerstone of its long-term objectives and currently has over $90 billion in its ETFs that comply with ESG standards. Recently, Temasek, the Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund, took a 3.9% stake in BlackRock in support of sustainable investing. The Monetary Authority of Singapore has established a dedicated office to promote ESG standards in its banking sector, and Pakistan has also embarked on a similar program at the State Bank of Pakistan. HSBC recently announced a joint venture to form the world's largest natural capital manager, targeting $3 billion. This JV will be the first large-scale venture to mainstream natural capital as an asset class. General Electric, an important institution, last year announced it was exiting the coal-fired plant business. It is evidence from these facts I've cited that the world has recognized climate risk as a critical area, and I would like to outline the key areas that GIP needs to focus on for the new Central Asia Pakistan chapter. Just a few points. The key role of the Central Asian chapter is to engage more closely with local stakeholders, including financial institutions, regulators, MDBs, and research institutions. The core function of the chapter is to help disseminate GIP-related knowledge of products and activities, build capacity for green and sustainable investment, as well as solve practical problems faced by investors and corporates who wish to make more green investments. The chapter will bridge the information gap on green projects by collecting project information by sharing with GIP members through its green project database. The chapter will host its own activities focusing on regional needs while connecting with other chapters and the GIP Global Secretariat. The chair and chapter is available to answer questions to the GIP and can facilitate any prospective institutions in becoming GIP members. It is now apparent to all that climate change is now an existential challenge of our time, and a key component of BRI's emphasis and priority. Its importance has become even more elevated with COVID-19, as it has sensitized the world to how vulnerable we are to the forces of nature. GIP's role in support of BRI has become all the more important in ensuring the greening of our planet does not take a back seat. Momentum to the run-up to the COP26 meetings in November in the UK has accelerated, as evidenced by a couple of following items which you find interesting. At the UN General Assembly in September, President Xi announced no new overseas coal-fired plants will be financed. This announcement supports GIP's goals. Secondly, Citibank, a global institution, will wind down financing coal-fired plants in the coming years. Singapore and Australia, and this is latest news, Singapore and Australia are planning a $22 billion mega infrastructure project to provide solar energy from Australia to Singapore via undersea cables by 2027. This is the largest green project in the world by far and will provide 15 to 20% of Singapore's power needs. On September 10th, just last month, Harvard University's $42 billion endowment fund announced it will start divesting from fossil fuels, giving a boost to climate control. South Africa, which is one of the largest exporters of coal, is in talks to reduce its dependency on coal that currently supports 80% of its power. These points are important, and they highlight the run-up to the COP26 meetings in the UK, where the major countries will take center stage in highlighting the climate risks that we are all going to face. Thus, it's incumbent upon us to take all of these steps very, very seriously and maintain the momentum that we have already started. Let me summarize as follows. The world has begun to take climate risks seriously, and we have an excellent opportunity in showing to the world how the Central Asian GIP chapter can assimilate its knowledge base and resources to develop a clear long-term path to carbon neutrality. The transition to a net zero economy is the greatest collective endeavor we must undertake going forward. How capital is allocated to support this effort is a priority. And as owners and stewards of capital, we have a responsibility to direct investments to activities that promote sustainable development. Let us all work together to achieve that goal for a better future. Thank you very much, Aigul, and your kind invitation for me to talk. I hope I have not delayed the forum too long, and that's all I have to say. But good luck and congratulations on your World Investment Forum.
Thank you, Yaseen. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. And indeed, regional integration is crucial for success. And in order for regional integration to succeed, government policies in conjunction with the GIP can play important role actually with a well-coordinated leadership, right? And back to one of your comments about the green projects we're planning together. We'll hear from Darrenth Hawken now about the Sustainable Investment Database, another project of one of the working groups within GIP. Darrenth is the head of capital market sales at strategy at Refinitiv. He has more than 20 years of experience with financial services and banking industry. And while selling comes naturally to me, my real passion is product development. Providing solutions to clients' problems is what really motivates me, says Darrenth on his LinkedIn profile. So if you're a green project holder, stay on the line and you will hear the solution for your investor search. Darrenth, over to you.
Thank you very much, Aigul. Thank you. That's a great description, and also to follow a central banker as well and have that. I'm very deeply impressed. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here to provide an update on the infrastructure database element of the working group for the GIP. I'm temporarily filling in for a colleague of mine who's unfortunately out this week. But hopefully, as we roll this operation forward, I think Refinitiv have a lot to offer in this space. So just some details of the working plan as it's been laid out. So we want to establish a database of sustainable finance, which will obviously help us promote and track investments and the financing flows. Obviously, there will be some benefits to this, reducing the cost and sourcing of projects, and of course, improving the commercial ability of projects to actually come forward into the marketplace. As many people are aware, it's not that we lack financing for these transactions, it's mostly that these transactions need to be better structured and better established within the marketplace, enable for them to come forward. So progress to date through 2021, as you can see, we've established a prototype. It's been in development with the necessary functions. We are building project sorting by categories, synopsis, market insights, and industry news. So allowing for the classification and the viewing of this data in a stronger format. Through August, the group have completed a series of interviews, one-to-one interviews around, and a project survey has been drafted and is, as I understand, is in the process of being distributed. I think the survey is going to provide a great deal of information and data about the real needs of the differing groups within the community, as many different areas have different needs. In September, two large institutions joined as co-chairs for the working group. This is obviously an important step for the group to bring more relevance and deeper understanding of areas of focus. And then Refinitiv, I think, as befits our kind of space in the market as a sort of database of record, we will take a role in the secretariat in this area. Looking ahead, obviously this process will be an iterative one, and I think developing the pipeline of sustainable projects, both ones which have happened historically and ones which are happening in the future, will be a very important part of that process. As befits many of the conversations around this market at the moment, taxonomy, the classification of a project, where it sits in which definition, is obviously a very important part of the process. An online assessment tool, which we saw from colleagues earlier, I think is a very important part of this process. And again, really helps to bring more bankable projects to the market with more information. And then ultimately, I think providing a community, a marketplace for these transactions to be socialized, for want of a better word, is a very important step, given the diverse nature of the markets geographical markets that we work in. Timeline, obviously, the important deliverables, I think, are to circulate the survey, and then also we're looking towards 22 to actually make the database available within the marketplace. So I thought, given, as befits our position, Refinitiv within the market, some overview statistics, just a few moments of the sustainable finance space. I think the chart on the right, I don't really need to talk too much about it. It is shows the enormous ramp up of activity, both at a regional and overall basis. I think some key takeaways are worth looking at, as in the doubling of the year-to-date number. So year-to-date Q1, Q3 versus Q1, Q3 was double. I think that's a really big takeaway. EMEA remains the single largest market with 432 billion of issuance, and is quite innovative and focused on driving that space. But Asia has not, Asia ex-Japan has not rested easy. We've also had a number of very large, more than $1 billion transactions from a number of institutions around the region. And I think that kind of $1 billion mark is very much a milestone for the market. Average deal size in Asia has also increased quite dramatically over the period of years that we've tracked the data, to now ticking at just over 200 million. But I think one of the biggest takeaways is also the US market. US activity in green and sustainable remained very muted. I think generally because of a number of different reasons. Many financing institutions in the US market considered it potentially a way for a borrower to squeeze a few more basis points out of them, and perhaps the benefits were intangible or difficult to track. But I think the data shows that the US market has really, really stepped up its activity. Looking at how we break that down across the different sustainable financing types that we track here at Refinitiv, there are obviously some very large groups which remain very powerful in the space, and ESG, green and ESG loans take up an enormous amount of volume. But I think it's also worth noting that at year-to-date over $1.1 trillion of issuance, this market has absolutely arrived. And very much when we talk to the financing community now, the conversation is turning more and more to every single deal having some sort of connection. I think back to the previous speaker, the reluctance of many large banks to continue to finance non-ESG deals is a milestone in the market, and will push corporates to be rewarded for better activity. Q2 was a record anywhere in the world for issuance at an enormous level. And if we carry on this vein, and I see no reason why not, because we're currently obviously in October now, ESG will break all records to date. Just looking across the globe at some of the transactions, we can see some real mega transactions have been done, mostly out of the European and US markets. And I think in drawing this to drawing comparisons for other types of asset class issuance, where you see either investment grade lending for these large entities, particularly an investment grade borrower like Ford, they will no longer issue flat investment grade assets. They will issue against a series of green and ESG principles. So both the largest and the smallest, with a variety of different types of issuers in that list, have really embraced this market. From our perspective, Refinitiv obviously is very excited to be involved with this work, and we feel that data, all types of data on transactions, data on sustainability, data on the improvements in the asset and the environment that these deals bring about is the key to bringing more of these deals to the fore. Because without information, without comparable transactions, financiers, investors find it difficult to benchmark performance. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much, Aigul and the team, for my opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Darrenth. Thank you very much. And since we're running out of time, I think we'll not have Q&A session, but we will follow up with those questions. And just a quick question to our speakers. if you have certain key message, to our audience. So we know that net zero is not a discussion anymore. It's our goal, right? But the question is, how can we get there? And of course, we're talking about emerging Asia. So how can, let's say, regulators, right, can get there, the banks and the corporates, and how can GIP help with that? And Yaseen, if you could just share a couple of sentences, just like a key, message for the regulators, and our speaker from the Bank of China, if you could share your message for banks and for corporates from Qian and from Darrenth, just quick 2 sentences. Yaseen.
Certainly. One of the board meetings I had in London just last year, the subject came up, and my view was that I shared that the regulator is a very critical element in this. While the central banks should not be mandated to enforce these principles, because the responsibility of a central bank is price stability and monetary policy and so forth, but they should require disclosure, data and disclosure from the banks to ensure that they're complying with the risk parameters that are necessary. So this is one very important aspect of central banks' role, that they require disclosure activity. And in fact, the Singapore Monetary Authority of Singapore just recently announced more aggressive and more demanding disclosure laws from the financial institutions that they manage. So that is a trend that is going to happen. Secondly, I think Darrenth mentioned it, and a couple of your other speakers, is that finance is going to be critical for the future direction of this conversion to neutrality. And as the financial institutions become more aware, it'll be more and more difficult for financial institutions to provide financing to the coal-fired or the fossil fuel area. So I think behooves all these, the investors and everybody else, to make sure that they take that action today so that they don't get burned later on by not having access to finance. These are 2 very important points. And I think that's what COP26 will highlight also. Particularly China and the United States will be taking the lead in this. And you can see the momentum building up to that in Glasgow, what will happen. So I think what you're doing here, Aigul, and organizing this forum is very important and very, very timely, in that you're already a step ahead of what will already be announced in COP26. Those are comments I have, and they're important for all of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Yaseen. Shangqian, from you to the banks.
Thank you, Aigul. So I think from commercial banks, so they are key for the green products development. I think is to find the proper issuer and have the issuer to get a lower funding cost on the green finance. So for the previous transactions, we understand that for the green issuer has to pay extra expense on the green rating and green framework construction, and but the investors can guarantee a lower yield requirement. I mean, cannot assure of that. So the issuer sometimes appear to be reluctant to appear on the green finance products. So for the commercial banks, I think what we have to do is to find the good story, and to help the investors realize that it's worth to invest, to do some investment on the green bonds and green notes and etc. So that's from commercial banks, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. Qian, your message for corporates?
I think we all understand the urgency and the cause or the consequence of the inaction. I think that the challenge here is the time allowed us to prepare to really implement is fairly short, and so I think that the good thing is we have best practices, we have lesson learned from around the world, and the downside of it is that how you can really make it integrated into your own business, from all the clients, the business partners we've been working with. I think really put your head into it and find your own way is key this whole topic. And I think whether this platform or through GIP or other local alliances is really a good opportunity to share information and to be able to get things rolling quickly. So I think this type of initiative should continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Darrenth, over to you.
Thank you. I think it's very much socializing, advertising successful transactions. I think, very much from our perspective, what we see is a lot of people approach us looking for similar transactions. They're looking for a benchmark in this space. And because both in these markets and both generally even in the sustainable finance space, it's still very young, I think building benchmarks is a very, very important point, both at the primary side, but also eventually at the secondary side. And I think, letting people know when successful deals are done, ensuring that the good work that the company is doing with the borrowed money is achieved, those are all kind of very, very critical to ensuring that, the investor money that comes in, which ultimately is going to not really be the banks, it will be, pension, life assurance, longer dated owners feel comfortable with those investments and based on our personal choices can show that investors are getting what they need.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darrenth. Thank you to our distinguished panel, to our audience, keeping us alive. And I think kind of wrapping up, we just want to say that GIP is here to support your initiatives, to showcase those best projects you have and support you in your endeavors, in this transition. We have these instruments, right, these toolboxes, and we do have this platform for discussion with you. So just leave it here maybe. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us and the regional office will be in touch with you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.